we had a lot of problem and complaining going on from NBA All Star Weekend, from how bad All Star Weekend was, to going on what's going on with the NBA, and people are starting to call out the lackluster performance, the lackluster of heart, the lackluster of care from NBA players. It got to a point where we got a hockey guy calling them out. PK. Uh, Shout out to him because I remember at a point in time with PK Sean when he was in like the league, and this one I remember because like hockey, I ain't gonna hold you. I'm not watching. I'm not deep into hockey like that. I'll watch it. If it ain't the Blackhawks, I really don't care about it because ever since I watched the finals of Blackhawks, when I've been a fan of them. But I ain't gonna lie to you and say like I know hockey like I know basketball or like football. No, but I do remember this guy because I believe he was going through like um, some things about his race, especially with the sport that he plays. Hockey is primarily like white Canadian, and he's a black guy in the sport. So I know he was talking about and dealing with troubles with coming up with him being a black man playing hockey. So that's what I really like remember him from. He's a good player, but he definitely had a lot to say about how the NBA players not showing no pride, no heart, when it comes like the All Star break and what's going on with the league. I got a clip from when he was on. This was, I believe, he was on First Take.
I think he was on Get Up.
He was on Get Up and First Take. It
Oh,
was
okay.
two clips. I'm gonna show you. I believe this is the one where he was on. I believe this was Get Up. Let's see. But yeah, let's go and play this clip real quick.
Then you're about two things: your teammates and the fans. And I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. When you do not show up to play, you're letting your teammates down. When you do not show up to play, you're letting the fans down that are paying you 40, 50, 60 million. I don't care if you're getting 300 million. Congratulations. But these people in here are paying $2,500 a ticket, $5,000, that are blue collared, hardworking people. If you don't get your head wrapped around that, you shouldn't be in pro sports, because how are we going to grow? How do we expect you to be an example? Well, guess what? You don't want to be, you are one. You're on the biggest stage. You just said it. They make the most money. You're an example. You got to show up. You got to take that on. I'm sick and tired of making athletes greats, all-time greats that aren't the best examples. Those are the people that we want our kids to follow, that we want athletes to follow. That helps us in our game. Stephen A., you want.
So I went a little bit short, but the main thing he was talking about pretty much the players' effort of recent years when it comes to the NBA, or really just this year, because obviously that's what he's mainly talking about led from the All Star game. But a lot of fans have been questioning that with what's going on with the NBA, and I think it's a lot of things to play a part in this, Sean. And I might even want to like do a video. I think it's like a list of things. Might even want to do a video on it, like to break it down a list of things that's really with the problem in the NBA and where we at. And remember, I was talking to you about like I was saying like a comedian, my comedian friend. I know he said like the suburban kid thing. You know what I'm saying? People coming up when they not hungry coming up into the league, so it's like a different type of environment. Or people not loving the game, or it's a lot of different things. So the 24/7 media, the 24/7 getting scrutinized. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of other things that we go into. But I want to stick to mainly him. What he was saying, like what? How do you feel about what PK said about the NBA players' effort? Is he true? Is he wrong? Did he go too far?
So, SB, I'll say this. I think two things. Number one, I came up in a time when NBA All-Star Weekend was by far the best All-Star Weekend of the major four professional sports leagues. And when I say by far, it was by far.
Yeah.
It was a showcase, but it was also, I want people to remember there was a time where, again, we didn't get all the NBA games on national television that we have now, right? Particularly if you didn't have cable. So All-Star Weekend was super important because in a lot of instances, that's when you had an opportunity to really show the country and to a lesser extent the world who you were. if you played in certain markets, there are guys that you didn't always see. I'm gonna give you a great example. Alex English, right?
Yeah.
Played for the Denver Nuggets. Alex English is, I believe, the leading scorer of the 1980s, the decade of the 80s. I believe he is.
I think he is too.
So in that vein, we didn't see. I didn't see there weren't a lot of Denver games on TV unless they were playing in Boston on a Sunday, or unless they were playing in LA right after Boston, the Boston game on Sunday afternoon on CBS. So that's when I got to see, Alex English. I think what's happened, unfortunately, and again, this is a much longer conversation, and I don't necessarily want to get into it because, again, for the interest of time, but to your point, we may actually have to just do one entire show about this. But I think what has happened is the greater the exposure meant that we were expecting greater expectation. And that's what we haven't always gotten. I used some language Monday that I normally wouldn't use on here because that's not really my thing at all. But I also recognize that, to PK Subban's point, there is a pride factor, and the pride isn't about, in all honesty, I'm going to show everybody why I'm the best in the world, because guys get to do that 20, 25 nights a year on national TV on average. No, we got the best of the best in the world here in this one place. This is the one time a season you're going to get the best of the best in the league and in the world here. And the pride was, no, I'm about to show everybody why I'm the best. I'm about to show everybody why I'm next. Why y'all don't have to worry about the league post LeBron and post Steph and post KD because I'm here. And that doesn't exist in this particular group right now. I think there's a lot of reasons why that doesn't exist, which, again, I don't want to get into all of those things, but he's not wrong. He's not wrong. And again, NHL with this, Four Nations format they just did, you saw guys going all out for it. But some of that comes from nationalism, them representing their country, whether USA or Canada, or representing their country. But also it comes from a space of, I don't play on national television. Now, NHL games aren't on every night on national television. I know who Connor McDavid is, and I know who Alex Ovechkin is, who we haven't talked about enough, but Alex Ovechkin is about to become the all-time lead scorer in hockey.
One of the greats.
But when you start listing names, it starts to get a little light. That's not the case with the NBA. I do think, though, we need to be very, very honest about what the NBA is at this point. The NBA, from a ratings perspective, is not a television league anymore. It's a social media league.
That's part of the problem, too.
And the product you see on national television isn't necessarily going to be reflective on social media.
Yep.
And that is a big part of it. Now, people complaining about these guys getting so much money and blah, blah, blah. And while I'll say that's fair, that's not going to change. They've already gotten the money. They just signed a new media rights deal. That money's coming, regardless whether we turn it on or not. They're going to get their money. They're getting their money. Now, if the ratings dip or if the ratings start to fall off, it's the next media rights deal that you'll see
that money dropping
in. But you're not going to see that now because this is an 11-year deal they're about to start. That's roughly, $7 billion a year between Amazon, Peacock, NBC, and ESPN. So let's be very clear. It's not going to change. And I think we need to just own that's where we are right now with the game. And again, it's not going to change anytime soon.
Well, PK, I have to 1,000% agree with him. For me being a fan, watching the game for a while, and Blue Ball, I know you want. We definitely we finna get on LeBron too about Bron getting blamed because I have something to say about that. The truth of the matter of that situation. But let's go to the NBA as a whole. And Sean, you did say one thing that's important, that the guys who are supposed to be taking over post LeBron, post KD, ain't doing a good job at that. It don't feel like the league is in good hands. I know we have times where people disrespect like other eras, but I think this new up and coming era is truly disrespecting the legends in a different type of way. That's like you are burning a house or the foundation of what they built for y'all to get the money that y'all getting right now, for y'all to get the guaranteed contracts that you're getting right now, for y'all to get the better flights that y'all getting right now. Yeah, I even went to flights. It was different type of traveling. You see, the WNBA just got private flights. It was a time where a long time ago, but even little things like that matter. All that matters. And I don't feel like the players that's coming up now don't care. And I don't think they love the game of basketball like that. I think basketball got to the point where they're making too much money, where now as people get into the league who just talented enough to play basketball don't really love the game. And it's sad to say, and I could be wrong, but until further notice, until I see more out of this new generation that's coming up, I can't see none of them loving the game of basketball like LeBron James or like Kevin Durant do. They don't move like it. They don't act like it. They don't show it at no point at all. And maybe you could say maybe the playoffs they show that, but I it's a reason why that's a reason for that too. But like I said, we all want to get too deep in this conversation and talk about that. But I think that's the problem. And then also the next thing is, and I 100% agree with PK, by the way. He hit everything on the nail on the head. It's bad when the hockey guy got to come tell y'all that. The other problem we have is player entitlement problem. A lot of these players come in the league, happy. Then once they get that super max extension and ain't done nothing in the league, ain't gave back nothing to the league to push the league forward, they think they owe them something. The league is entitled to them. Perfect guy like Ben Simmons. Even Kawhi with injury, I get injuries, but game man, it's just little things like that where you taking advantage of the everyday people. Like, bro, people paid a lot of money to come to that All-Star game. You don't even care enough to hoop. The basketball play, and I know everybody complained about the ass. I agree, it was more ass than basketball. But maybe, just maybe, y'all ain't think about the fact that Adam Silver was so scared or so nervous or so worried, I should say, I don't even say scared, worried that the player was going to put on a bad showing, that he rather put on a Kevin Hart and Inside the NBA TV show on TV longer than basketball. Nobody talk about that part, though, because they had to set up the foundation of the game and the show, and the players got mad because they got kept stopping and going for what? Y'all don't deserve that. When y'all had a full game, what did y'all do? Y'all played like y'all was stopping and going, so we going to actually do that. So for the commissioner of the league, use more, pretty much had a Kevin Hart special inside the NBA and commercials more than basketball. That should tell you the players should feel disrespected. And they don't care still. Only thing I heard complain is we just hated that we had to stop. Kept stopping and playing. Nobody felt disrespected, and nobody not knowing what's going on, that they so worried that y'all gonna put on a bad showing that they had the field time. And so they had we got to find a way to make this money back, because people gonna be calling us like, what type we put all this money into the NBA or the All-Star weekend, we didn't get our money worth. That should tell you a lot. And the players think like the league and Adam Silver owe you something. The All-Star weekend got changed because y'all didn't do y'all job. How are y'all entitled to say let's go back to East and West? What have y'all shown on the court for y'all to go get back to the normal program? Nothing. What have y'all done at all? But I think we do got a player entitlement problem, Sean, for sure.
So I won't deny that there is an epidemic, I think, in the league among player entitlement. And again, when you collectively bargain things and players hit those markers to get those things that have been collectively bargained, I'm not upset with that at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a couple things that we need to be very, very honest about, though, SB. I think, number one, the advent of social media, while it's had some great benefits for players in the league, there's been some drawbacks as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times you know so much more about these guys and they share so much more about themselves in the interest of raising their individual brands that there's questions about whether or not they, along with their teams, are really all in on doing what it takes to try to win. I think that's a fair question. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer with it, but I do think that's a fair question. But as I said earlier, greater exposure brought greater expectation. And I think it's fair to say the expectation overwhelmingly has not been met given what you're giving guys.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was about 20 years ago or so. It was right after Michael Jordan retired for good. He was on Oprah Winfrey. And he was talking with Oprah about the state of the players today. And he was talking about guys getting these, huge contracts and these huge deals, shoe deals, and all these endorsements and things coming into the NBA based purely on their potential.
Yep.
And he talked about the risk of that is they don't have to work as hard.
Yep.
And he was talking about, the Magics and the Birds and himself and the others of that era that had to put in the work, and they earned, in his opinion, they earned those things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was that far as he took it at the time. But I think if you watch the clip and listen to what he said 20 yeyears ago today, I think it applies more today than it ever has.
Yeah, he hit it on the money.
And I do think it has something to do with the fact that we do get very, very wrapped up in potential. We get very much wrapped up in, oh man, this guy can be great. We're talking about, 3 guys in this upcoming draft that, and Cooper Flagg and Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, who are all really good college players who could be really good NBA players. People would get more wrapped up in that than sometimes looking at some of the guys in the NBA who may not necessarily get a lot of hype or get a lot of pub, but are really good basketball players, and they just come hoop, and there's no drama with them. There's no nonsense with them. We rather focus on that. So some of it is the appetite of the audience and what is the audience asking for as opposed to the product. And so maybe from an audience perspective, maybe we need to refocus our interest on, well, no, let's look at who's actually playing. Let's look at who's actually doing well. Let's look at this young player who's actually coming to the league, put in the work, growing their game, and and doing well. We talk far more about drama than we do someone like Norman Powell.
Yep.
Right.
Who could have played in the All-Star game, but somebody wanted to do something the wrong way. But we'll talk about that in a second.
Right. So again, I think some of it is, from an audience perspective, do we focus a little too much on the glitz and the glamour and the bells and the whistles, or are we apt enough, and I'm just speaking about an audience in general, are we apt enough or well-informed enough on the game to focus on, well, this guy is playing well, this guy is hooping, right? Again, the Clippers are nationally considered a joke, but
yes,
that's a very dangerous team.
Yes.
If they're healthy. And they're like number 2 in the league in defense this season.
Mm-hmm.
But who's talking about that? People rather talk about the boom and the glitz and the, and that's what I mean. It's I think that some of it has to be from an audience perspective. We have to educate ourselves enough on the game to enjoy the actual game and not the crazy stuff that comes around and the drama stuff that comes around the game and the sport.
Adam John said, we saw a 25-year-old Luka get traded. He lost $350 million Supermax. Dallas didn't believe that Luka could stay and play in shape. And honestly, Adam John, the Luka Doncic was with the problem that's growing with the NBA with the player entitlement, where like people think, oh, Luka was supposed to be one of those untouchable. And part of the problem with player entitlement was stuff like that, where like, oh, I'm Luka Doncic. I'm just saying, Luka probably wasn't like this, but Luka Doncic could have been like, I'm Luka Doncic. I pretty much own Dallas. Dallas ain't gonna get another superstar like me, so I'm not gonna do my job to my full potential. They said, no, this was to put everybody on notice, like, hey, look, if y'all don't do what we need y'all to do, I'm gonna move you out. Not gonna pay you this much money because that's a lot of. It's possible we get to a point where players might get $70 million a year. We already were at like 50. $70 million. That's a lot of money to pay a player who not doing everything they supposed to do. And you only gonna pay them just off occasion.
Just for context, SGA is extension eligible this offseason. Mm-hmm. In the last year of his deal, SGA is going to make close to $80 million a season.
And if you want to pay, come on now, like you said, that's the way it's going. Do you want to pay a person $80 million a year that he ain't doing his job? $80 million a year that he ain't doing his job. Now, say it, Sean. I know what you're finna say. Go ahead, say it.
Well, here's my thing for Dallas. You pay Luka, and if he doesn't do it, then you trade him. But you don't worry about paying someone like that. And also you don't worry about can you trade that player, because that player, if you put him on the block, a lot of teams are calling and they're going to give you everything, maybe including their firstborn child, to get Luka Doncic in their uniform.
Yep. And
so from Dallas's perspective, pay him and figure it out later.
Yep, and that's what they should have did. Like you said, you could have traded. Ain't no signing bonus where you got to hold a cap for you like NFL. So once you trade him, you gone.